Online book clubs, book launches streamed on social media, audiobooks and e-books. Since the lockdown, it seemed many people are putting their noses between the pages. Our resident book reviewer, Andrea van Wyk, tells us about two titles that will entertain and inform you while you're stuck at home.
Whether you know something about science or not, there's no question. It describes the central magic of the universe. From Isaac Newton to Albert Einstein, scientific wizards have changed the way we see the world. But who were these people really? And what does it feel like to know something about the universe before anyone else does? Those are the questions in The Magicians by popular science writer Marcus Chown. I asked him if science really is like magic.
Well, that's slightly tongue-in-cheek, really. What I mean is that there's a central magic to the way that science is done, which people don't understand. Okay, so it's possible to write down a mathematical formula on a piece of paper, on a blackboard, on a whiteboard, and that predicts the existence of things which no one ever suspected. You know, it could be black holes, it could be the Higgs particle, whatever. And when people go and look, they actually find these things exist in the real world. So the magic is that the universe, the real universe, has a mathematical twin that mimics it in every possible way, and we don't know why. So famously, the scientists themselves cannot quite believe that this works. So famously, Einstein did not believe two predictions of his own theory of gravity, which were black holes and the Big Bang. So it's very hard to believe that a piece of hieroglyphics that you write on a piece of paper actually reflects the real universe. So that's the magic.
Most magic tricks are hard to understand, but this is different. It's accessible, and when it comes to science books, that's saying something. I asked Marcus what it is that he wants people to take away from this book.
So it's actually really, just great stories, many of which I've never seen written up. So, for instance, the people who tried to detect the neutrino, which is, if you hold up my thumb, 100 billion neutrinos are flowing through my thumb now every second. 8.5 minutes ago, they were in the centre of the sun. Neutrinos are particles which are produced by the sunlight generating reactions in the sun. Now, the people who tried to detect it, they were going to put their experiment 50 meters from the explosion point of an atomic bomb. So how amazing is that? They were going to drop their experiment in a shaft, which they dug, a vertical shaft they dug in Nevada. They were going to drop it 150 feet so that when the bomb went off, the experiment would not be in touch with the ground, so it wouldn't get the shockwaves. And then they were going to have like mattresses and feathers at the bottom of the shaft to cushion its fall. And then 2 days later, some poor person was going to have to go through the radiation-scarred landscape and actually retrieve the experiment. So I tell all these stories of all these weird and wonderful experimenters and people who predicted things. So it's about people, really.
Okay, so you've probably been spending a lot of time on the couch or in bed. That's because you're staying at home, which is the law. And speaking of the law, time for a bit of crime fiction. Alexis Shakin's Saint X is described as a literary thriller. It's about an 18-year-old girl called Alison who goes missing on the fictional island of Saint X. Her body is found a few days later, with reports suggesting she was murdered. Now, the story is told mostly from the viewpoint of her little sister, Claire, who's only 7 when Alison is killed. 2 local men are arrested for the crime, but released for the lack of evidence. Years later, Claire runs into one of them and decides to investigate on her own. The writing is magical, and Shakin maintains the suspense throughout the book. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some reading to do. Andrea van Wyk, Johannesburg.